2019 Introduction to the Wisdom of Kabbalah course. My name is Marty.M.Meydan. And I have with me Anthony.
Hi everyone, how's it going?
And we hope you can hear us. We had a bit of a technical glitch, so we apologize for the late start. However, we are back on track. But this is the first lesson, and in the first lesson what we're going to do is we're going to have a little introduction about who B'nai Baruch is and how we can study wisdom of Kabbalah together and what's actually ahead of us. So we're going to do a few semesters together, and we're going to find out how we can really interact over the period of this course and get to study at a more intimate level as we move forward. Now, every year we open up a course which is just once a year, so 2019 happens to be starting now, and in front of us are 3 semesters, and they're each going to be 10 lessons each. So we're going to have a first semester, second semester, and a third semester, and that's how we're going to finalize everything together. So it's a bit of a process, but this is really a wisdom which is about the essence of our life. So it's a very, very deep science, a very, very deep and intense knowledge that's awaiting us. It's a big ocean, and we're going to start going into that ocean slowly, starting at the shallow end and making sure we get our foundations right. So although the process may seem a bit long, actually studying the wisdom of Kabbalah and getting to know our reality and getting to know the laws of nature and how we exist and how we were created and how the whole of creation was created is really not that difficult to understand and to know and to start practicing straight away. It's a very, very practical science. But before we go into what the wisdom of Kabbalah is and what it isn't on the first lesson, we'd like to just cover up some admin and technical stuff so that for the next time you'll know what to use and what technicalities to use and how you can keep in touch with us all the time. Now today, or yesterday during this week, regarding the commencement of this course, you would have all received an email. And that email you should keep because that's kind of your connection line with us. Any question you have, any query you have, whether it's a technical issue or a question regarding the lesson, that's the email address you should be writing to. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we're going to be using, in the course of the next lessons, a software program called Zoom. Okay, and it's worthwhile going into the internet and checking that out. Zoom.us. Okay, so this is, if we can see that on the screen, that's right, there we go. So you can go to that website and you can download it. It's a free software, and we're going to be using that in order to interact with each other during the lesson. So as time goes on, we'll be able to see you on the screens as well, just like you see us, and our lessons will be more interactive and more close, and we'll be able to connect much better. So this is a software that we're going to use, and I know some parts of the world internet may not be so strong, and you may not be able to turn your cameras on and so on due to the speed of the internet. If you can't, that's okay, not to worry. Just keep watching the lessons and everything will be fine, and we'll try to help you as best we can in any case. All right, but the email address, the software, if you can use it, that'd be great. And the email is, like I said, for our communication line together, and any queries, technical or regarding the lessons, you can direct there. In our first semester, in our first 10 lessons, we're going to build the foundations. And our foundations is going to be what really the wisdom of Kabbalah is and how we should approach this study. And what are the basics, well, not actually the basics, but really the founding stones, the structural elements of the wisdom. So we'll be going into a lot of deep topics actually, even in our first semester, such as the perception of reality, freedom of choice, human nature, the nature of reality, and how all these things come together in our lives so we can actually direct ourselves properly towards the meaning of life. And just like in our 2019 course slogan, if you saw our little banner on our Facebook page and YouTube, you would have noted there at the bottom, because your life has a meaning, and it seriously does. All of our lives have a meaning, and the wisdom of Kabbalah is the science to discover that meaning. So we're going to start with our first lesson today. Feel free to ask any question you like about the wisdom of Kabbalah through our chat site. Anthony will be kind enough to give us all the lessons, give us all your questions here. So Shmuel, if you can move us to the double screen, there we go. All right, so we can actually get rid of this Zoom now. Let's clean that out. Okay, there we go. So we don't need that at the moment. So if you have any questions, Anthony will pick them up. And you can ask anything you like about the wisdom of Kabbalah or spirituality, or how we approach spirituality in the wisdom of Kabbalah. So let's start, let's get smashing, and if there are any queries, we'll fix them up along the way. So the introduction to the wisdom of Kabbalah. Well, the first question we need to answer is, what is the wisdom of Kabbalah? Now, if you go onto the internet, if you go do a little Google search on what is Kabbalah, you'll find a lot of different things defining what Kabbalah is. And some of those definitions are really weird, because some people think it's black magic. Some people think it's about astrology. Some people think it's a hidden secret. And a lot of things have gone around it. And in fact, Kabbalah has been related to Freemasonry. It's been related to, like I said, black magic and voodoo and all kinds of silly things, including changing your luck and changing your destiny, and so forth. But the wisdom of Kabbalah, the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah, has actually nothing to do with that kind of stuff. And I'm sure you guys are also, been around long enough on the planet. If you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, I think you also would understand that in life there's no such thing as magic and magical things such as that, because that's all on Hollywood, really. I mean, I lived on 4 continents, and I haven't seen anything magical anywhere. Life is the same everywhere we go. Have you seen anything magical, Anthony?
I've seen some good tricksters.
You've been to Vegas?
Some tricksters, yeah. I was in London a few months back. I saw some tricksters.
Okay.
Nothing that couldn't be explained.
All right. So there you go. Everything in life has an answer. And sometimes we relate things to mysticism, or things that are like mystical or magical, but it's simply because we don't understand what's behind the phenomena. So Kabbalists, first of all, want to really clearly define what the wisdom of Kabbalah is. And the wisdom of Kabbalah is a science for all of us, for all of humanity, to understand how reality works, how everything was created, why it was created, what's the purpose behind the whole of creation, and how can a person can attain that purpose while living in this world. So Kabbalah is not a religion, and it is not associated with any religion at all. Sometimes on the internet you might find it like Jewish mysticism. Well, first of all, there's no such thing as mysticism, and second of all, the Jewish religion came much after the wisdom of Kabbalah. Actually, the wisdom of Kabbalah comes to us from Adam. So it's like 5,000, nearly 6,000 years ago, and the history of Abrahamic religions is only just 2,000 years. So Kabbalah has nothing to do with any religion whatsoever. It is an approach to understanding life and our place in life, so that we can attain the purpose of existence in the first place. So, in a nutshell, it's not black magic, it's not red strings, holy water. It has nothing to do with religions. It's nothing mystical. Did I miss out on anything?
I think that's about it.
That's about it. So there's no voodoo. There's no doing Kabbalistic yoga. There's no Kabbalistic astrology. There's no Kabbalistic sex. There's no Kabbalistic food, and nothing of that kind.
No Kabbalistic sex?
No. Okay. So there's only one thing about the wisdom of Kabbalah, and that is actually to determine man's place, a human's place in reality. And that's how we're going to look at it from a perspective, and that we should know from the first lesson onwards, actually, that the whole purpose of creation is for all of us, all of humanity, to attain a higher level of perception. And that perception, attaining that perception, starts with a little question. And that question is, what is the meaning of my life? So a lot of people who study Kabbalah, well, they're actually the only type of people who come to study the wisdom of Kabbalah are those who ask this question. And they're very meticulous about this question as well. They really want to know what the meaning of their life is. Because in life, we're going through all kinds of dramas, a lot of suffering. If you look at the world, there's always a war somewhere. There's always some kind of famine, natural disaster, conflicts, terrorism, and just sickness. All kinds of horrible things happen in life. So this leads all of us to ask this question, well, if we're just born here, and if we're going through all kinds of traumatic events, and if we look at our lives, we just can't find anything to be happy about, despite the fact that we really want to be happy, then that leads us to a question, well, why are we living? What's this whole mess for? And is there some higher force, some upper force, call it, I don't know, God, Allah, Elohim, or I don't know what you want to call it? Why would that force create such a big mess? And do we have anything at all to do with this big mess in the first place? I mean, after all, we're just landing here from our mother's womb, completely out of the sky. We have no idea where we are when we're born. We just grow up in this place and we just go with the flow of life. And that flow of life just takes us from the cradle all the way to the grave. And just like we were born naked, we end up dead naked. So there are a lot of things, a lot of philosophies, a lot of religions in the world that try to explain this phenomena about what is the meaning of our life. But as you can see, for thousands of years, there's more than 4,500 religions in the world, with all these philosophies, all of them included. And none of them really have an answer. Because man's question is always this, well, what's going to happen after I'm dead? Isn't that a question we all want to know? But nobody really knows. We believe in things that we were told from religious teachings or from our parents or whatever spiritual teaching as well. Somebody tells us something when we were children in our religion, and we believe that that is what's going to happen when we die. But has anybody really been there and back to tell us and explain it to us in such detail? No. So how did my mum and dad or my priest in the church or the imam at the mosque or the rabbi at the synagogue know about it? Well, they didn't know either. Somebody told them as well. So all these things that we've been taught throughout our childhood and our lives, it turns out that if you think about it, it's just hearsay, really. So since the beginning of religions, all we have in our hands regarding the answer to the meaning of life is hearsay. Or hearsay from what people wrote thousands of years ago. But at the end of the day, it's just hearsay. And nobody knows for sure. And it's always a big question mark. So none of these philosophies or religions, I'll put them all into one category, belief systems, let's call it, okay, have really an answer to this question. However, though, the wisdom of Kabbalah is a scientific and it's a personal perspective science of how to approach life from the laws of nature. Rather than just believing in what somebody told us, the wisdom of Kabbalah allows us to discover life by connecting to life through life's events, through human nature, and the laws of general nature. and how we can bring them to a reconciliation in order to feel the force that acts behind the whole scene. Because it's obvious that I didn't create myself. It's obvious that I didn't create this reality either. I was just born in it. So we can safely assume, well, somewhat safely assume, that there is a creating force, a force that created everything. So the Kabbalistic starting point is actually that. So if I was created here in the middle of this world, and this world and reality was created, then there must be some kind of a force behind this creation that has put in place an implementation, an application, which is called the laws of nature. And regardless of our historical past, as you can see, the world, day in and day out, starts with the rising sun, ends with the setting sun, and we go through cycles of days, cycles of seasons, cycles of years, cycles of life. And as time goes by, humanity has come to a point of development where we discovered that despite all of the technological innovation, despite all the cultural, the education, the science, whatever development we've been through and we've come to, we've discovered one thing. We still don't know the meaning of life, and we are still not content with our lives. Because in the past, I remember when I was a child, that they used to tell us that, wow, when technology is going to be, all advanced, we're just going to have fun in life. We won't be working anymore. Everything will be great. Humanity will just have a whole different ball game.
Well, I was expecting the flying cars that they always talked about.
Well, they're out. You'll be glad to know. Okay. You just need a pilot license. Okay. So a lot of the things that we actually dreamt about working less, having a better lifestyle, and so on the one hand, it's becoming a reality. But on the other hand, we're not really finding ourselves any happier or with more free time. In fact, we are more inundated with things in life. We're more overloaded with everything. So Kabbalists are saying, listen, no matter how much development we go through, no matter what we develop, no matter how many stars or other planets we conquer in the galaxy system, even if we found many other Earth-like planets in the solar system, which we won't, by the way, I'll tell you up front, we'll never be happy because we lack this understanding of what our human nature is. And the wisdom of Kabbalah is the science that answers these questions about what my essence is. Why do I feel the way I do? Why think and get ideas about the things I do? Why do I do the things I do? Sometimes we go through things that it's just uncontrollable behavior. And if you think about it, we're not much different from animals. I mean, let's face it, what's the great, big, huge difference between us and an animal? An animal is also feeding itself, living its life. Let's take chickens, for example. I like the examples of chickens because they really remind me of human society. They all live in a little chicken, what do they call it, a chicken barn?
Yeah. Chicken hut.
And a chicken hut, okay? So in a chicken hut, there are a bunch of chickens. They also walk on two legs. There's a chicken, there's a rooster. They mate, they lay eggs. In the morning, they go out of the hut and they feed. And in the evening, they're rushed back into the hut and they spend the night in the hut. And which is pretty much like us. We go out to work, to earn money so we can feed ourselves, look after our family, be happy as best we can, hit the sack, wake up, do the same thing again until the weekend. Okay, if you get a weekend break. In some countries, you don't get that either. So if you think about it, our lives, day in and out, isn't really that different from an animal. But beyond what an animal has, we have something else. It's that question. You see, a chicken doesn't ask itself, why am I living? But we do. And the reason we're underlining this question, why we're emphasizing it so much, is what makes us different from an animal. It makes us different because we want to know why we're living. We want to discover why we're living. In fact, the whole of human development for thousands of years has been just to answer this question. We developed science only to develop this question. Why are we living? And what is the meaning of all this creation and me inside this creation? So if you're patient with us, and if you stick it out through the course, you'll be able to discover the answer to all these questions. And I mean discover. I don't mean to read something and believe it if your mind agrees with it or not. I mean to discover it, because reality was meant for our discovery. It wasn't meant for somebody to tell me and for me to blindly believe and expect it to be so. But it was created so that we can actually rise to a higher level of consciousness through this research, through this development. And this development is called an inner development, a spiritual development. So the wisdom of Kabbalah is actually a method, a scientific method, where I actually applied the science on myself by using the whole of reality as a laboratory. And through that laboratory, I build myself a new perception of reality, which is beyond my five senses. In order to do that, we need a new sense. That sense is normally called a soul, and you might have read about it in the books and everything, and maybe you even think that we have a soul. But in fact, we don't have a soul. We're supposed to make one. Okay? Because if we had a soul already, we wouldn't have a problem, would we? Because if I know that I have a soul, I feel it. I live in the sense of that soul, and the hidden part of this reality would already be revealed to me through that soul. Because all religions talk about all the time and say, well, when you die, you get a soul. Or when you die, your soul goes somewhere. Well, where's my soul now? And why do I need to die for it? It just doesn't make sense. So Kabbalists say, well, we don't have a soul. We have a potential to have a soul. And the realization of that potential is exactly in this science. So it's a very, very unique, a very, very special science where a person can feel an extra sensory organ to perceive the part of reality that we currently cannot perceive. And that is called sometimes in books as the spiritual realm. Sometimes they call it the creator, they call it God, Allah, whatever you want to call it, okay? But the whole idea is to perceive the force behind creation and to actually participate in that creation with that tool called a soul. And that's what we're going to do. Together, we're going to take the first step in how we can actually do that. And the wisdom of Kabbalah, the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah, is only dealing with this aspect of how a person can develop a spiritual sensory organ to discover everything in reality. And to actually, by doing so, take control over reality. Exactly as if I created it myself. Any questions? Do we have any questions at the moment? No.
So far, none yet.
Okay, good. I don't know if that's good or bad.
I think they're getting it.
Okay, great. Now, our lessons are usually going to be about 1 hour and 15 minutes. So, depending on your time zone, let's say we start here at 9 p.m., it'll finish at 10:15. But if you have questions and if you're really dying to ask something about the wisdom of Kabbalah or spirituality or anything related to this course, which you think is important for you, you should go ahead and ask it, because the more questions you ask and you get them out of your system, it'll make it more clear for you. That the wisdom, the direction of the wisdom will become more clear for you in the long run. Okay. So we have a big question here. If the wisdom of Kabbalah is talking about all these great things about how we can discover the whole of reality, why isn't anybody studying it? Why isn't the whole world running to this authentic wisdom? Well, like I said a minute ago, we need something very, very special to study the wisdom of Kabbalah. And that thing is called a dot in the heart.
We just had a question came in.
Oh, well, great. I'm happy with that.
Okay. So this is from Veronique. Pardon me if I pronounce your name wrong. It says, if we are created in his image, then don't we have a soul too? Maybe it isn't activated and we have to do that, or what?
Well, look. First of all, a soul, well, the definition of a soul, we have to understand what a soul is, first of all. Because everybody, in religions and many teachings, they're all talking about a soul. But you ask anyone, nobody's seen it. Okay, nobody's seen it, nobody's felt it, because we live in our 5 corporeal senses. And according to our 5 corporeal senses, what we perceive is this reality. And according to the feedback we get with these 5 senses, we either feel good in our lives or we feel bad in our lives. And that's it. That's our life. You either feel good or you're bad. Now, soul is a new way. It's a new organ. It's like I don't know how else to call it. It's the 6th sense. It's the soul. It's something we don't have that allows us to perceive all the forces that are applying, working, and acting in reality. And actually, it's also allowing us to integrate ourselves into the system and be an active part in reality and in creation, actually governing it, ruling it, and running it. And that's what we're supposed to do. So when you say, if we're created in his image, whose image? We don't know. The books, there are a lot of books that write about beautiful things, and they're really poetic, and they really touch the heart. But if you think about it, in whose image are we created? Because we don't perceive our Creator. We don't know. We don't feel him. We don't see him. He's not around. So we can't really say in whose image, who is created or what is created. We also need to ask ourselves this question, are we a created being at all? Because at the end of the day, so are animals, so are plants, and in fact, so is the whole of reality. Because the whole of reality is a living system. So there are a lot of questions here, and what we have to do is just go step by step, take little bites, and lay the foundations, lay the path, slowly, slowly, stone by stone, so we have safe stepping stones where we don't fall. Right then. So maybe we'll read a little bit, okay? Or if there are any other questions, I'm also happy to do that. This first lesson about what the wisdom of Kabbalah is all about. The important thing here to understand is this, because a lot of people come to the wisdom of Kabbalah with some, upfront knowledge or some misconception as well. Let's read what Baal HaSulam says about what this wisdom. Baal HaSulam was a Kabbalist of the 20th century. He was the greatest Kabbalist there was in the 20th century, because he wrote the commentary on a book called Zohar and also the Tree of Life, which actually explained the whole of reality and whole of creation. So he actually discovered what we all need to discover, which is our place in life. So let's see what he wrote. And this is from a book called Kabbalah for the Student and the Essence of the Wisdom of Kabbalah. And in that book, he says, if I can. Okay. In that book, he says, the whole wisdom, it's on page 21, and it's in the article called The Essence of the Wisdom of Kabbalah. And in that article, he says this wisdom is no more and no less than discovering all the roots and branches of creation that descend from a higher reality to a lower reality. In other words, it's a science, it's a wisdom that allows us to discover the whole of reality and the cause and consequence of everything in reality. So everything that's acting on us from the inside and from the outside should be discovered by us, should be known to us, should be familiar to us, so that we can discover the whole of reality. Now, the important thing I did mention that you need in this wisdom is a thing called the dot in the heart. Okay, the dot in the heart. Now, the dot in the heart is known for being a starting point. Okay, if you can see the screen here, okay, the dot in the heart is a starting point inside a person. Actually, you know what? We can kind of draw it like this. The dot in the heart starts inside our heart, and it actually starts with that important question: why am I living? Because the truth is, if we're going to build a soul, if we're going to build our reality through a new sensory organ, we need to have its initial beginning point. Just like a baby is born from a drop of sperm and an egg, mating together, bonding together, uniting together in the womb of the mother and growing there, we also need that initial drop inside of us that will trigger this development. Everything in life, just like I said a minute ago, about everything that happens in this world is a reflection of a higher realm, a higher level. So if we want to attain that higher level, we should also see all of its examples actually displayed before our eyes. So in order for us to develop spiritually, we also need that initial drop, initial beginning point, just like a drop of sperm enters the womb in order for that pregnation to occur. And that thing, that little spark in the heart that we're talking about is the beginning point where a person starts to ask questions and starts to search for meaning in life. Because that meaning is something beyond the desires of this world. Because if I still wanted to get rich, be famous, I don't know, be the president or be a scientist, I'd still be running after those things. I wouldn't really be seeking about why am I living. I'd know why am I living. I'm living because I want to get rich. I'm living because I want to be famous, or I want to be the president, or I want to be a scientist, or whatever. Okay? But a person who's seeking something beyond these worldly things, who's looking for a meaning for his or her existence, starts this journey with a dot in the heart, and that dot in the heart is that pinching point. It's that question that's not leaving us alone. It's bugging us. In fact, it's even giving us a light depression. Why am I living? Or why am I not fulfilled? Why am I going through this life? What is it all for anyway? So these questions that a person asks about their life is the beginning of this dot in the heart. So this dot in the heart is very important, because without that we can't really develop. But since you're here and you're searching for the meaning of life, you must have that point. So we can develop that point And from that point, we can make a new sensory organ called a soul, or I don't know, call it a sixth sense, whatever. It doesn't matter. Where we can actually, inside it, inside this new vessel of reception, feel a spiritual realm. And that is actually the new you. In fact, not the new you, but the real you. Because Kabbalists explain to us, well, look, this body that we live in is going to die anyway. There's nothing really to talk about it. It's just going to die. Just like a chicken dies too, or a cat, or a dog. There's nothing really to talk about. If you bury a guy who just died, and a dog who just died, you dig them up after 40 days, you'll find that they haven't changed very much. It's the same, same bone and meat. But what we have here is an opportunity in life to build something beyond the body, so we can feel that higher level of existence, which is disconnected from the body. By the way, the soul, because we don't have one, has nothing to do with our body, despite many people think that the soul is in the body. First of all, we don't have a soul yet, so it can't be in the body. Second of all, the soul and the body are completely two different and two opposite things, which we'll get to discover along the lines of this course as well.
We have another question here from Garrett. It says, you talked about consciousness. What is a higher consciousness? How do we relate to it?
Well, that's what we're going to learn anyway. This is the whole science. We don't, you see, in life, we don't really have much to go with except our five senses. So we look at reality, what I see, what I hear, smell, taste, and touch. Give me this world. But at the end of the day, in this bodily life that I'm living in, I'm just going to pass away. So the Kabbalists say, well, this is one way of perceiving reality, and this is one level of consciousness, but this is a very shallow level of consciousness. This is why it's like a transient life. All of a sudden we're born, and all of a sudden you end up being 50. Okay, I gave that example because I'm nearly there. Okay, so, and I'm looking at my past, and I'm thinking, well, how did that 50 years just go by? Okay, it's a question mark, because although I'm 50 now, I don't feel everything that I went through as I was a kid. It was like a little dream just that went by. It's like my whole life went by and I had no clue about it. And now I'm 50 and I'm thinking, what just happened? So our life here isn't really felt as life. It's not really felt as living. It's more felt like a hazy dream that we're in. That's all. So to build that higher level of consciousness is a way for us to discover how we can actually live all the feelings and sensations that reality has to offer, and consciously be in it all the time, living it. And this is something which we don't do in this world. We just pass through this place. We come and we just go. And by the time we're going, even if we're 90 or 116, we just, pretty much our whole past is like a faint memory. It's just not even felt. Not even felt what I did today at work. Okay? It just went by. So we're always living the moment, just like animals do. So the differentiating factor between us and these animals is that we have the ability, if we want, to build a new reality which is above this animate living, which is above this level of existence, in a more permanent, in a more rich, in a more fulfilling, conscious way. And that's about it. Any other questions there, Anthony?
That was it.
All right. Well, let's take a look at how we developed over the centuries. Now, throughout history, the way we developed is through our desires. Because at the end of the day, if you look at yourself every day, what do you think? Well, you say to yourself, well, what do I want? All of us want something, and all of us want something every day. We always want something, and we want to get something done because we want to achieve something. Okay? So our life, and not just our life, but the whole of our historical development, okay, throughout history, let's call this history of humanity. Okay, history of humanity. Throughout centuries, we've just been developing our desires. And we started with basic desires just like animals, which was food, family, sex. And that's what we needed to survive and for the generations to keep coming after us, just like animals do as well. In the jungle, they eat, they have a family, they raise their children, they mate, and they make sure generations continue. And that's how we started off as well. But because we're human, we've got this extra thing that is beyond the necessities of life. Okay, so we can call these the necessities of life. We just need these to survive and to live and to continue life. So they're necessities. No big deal, nothing to worry about. And there's nothing to be ashamed of either. Just like cats and dogs, we have to have these things as well in order to survive. But what makes us a little bit more different than animals is our development, because we're social creatures and we have, through the interaction in that social structure, social desires. So over the years we've developed social desires from the environment, such as the desire to be rich, such as the desire to have power and honor. And also, what kept us going was the desire for knowledge. We as humans wanted to know. We wanted to know everything about life. The planets, the stars, the animals, everything. All of our sciences. In fact, science was the first step that we took to answer this question, why are we living? What's the meaning? What's behind this creation? Because that's what we want to discover. And here we are in the 21st century. Humanity has done its best to bring us to a lifestyle or standard where we can get by, and most of the planet is still not getting by either. We've come to a place in our development where most of the people will be unemployed soon because the world is going into technology. But if the whole world is getting, technological with artificial intelligence, what are we going to do? Where are we going to work? Is there going to be any workforce at all? So we've become very advanced, but we haven't really made use of those advances to be happy in life. So although we've done great things in our history, at the end of the day, we're unhappy and we have a question mark about why we're living. Because after all that development, we should have gotten something, right? Well, here comes the next phase of humanity's development. And that is a higher level of consciousness. And that development is actually spirituality. So beyond the 21st century now, we're going to be seeing more and more people asking this question, well, why are we living? What's the point of our lives? And humanity's spiritual development has started in the beginning of the 21st century. And this is why you see a lot of methods on spirituality, get well, feel well, be well, all this thing about get well and be well and feel well. Why? Because we're seeking to feel well, because we feel that we don't feel well. So we're seeking how to be happy. And this seeking is our next development. It's our next level, which we have to build, and it's called spirituality. And it all starts with a dot in the heart when people begin to ask that question, what's the meaning of life? And what does my life serve really? Who does it serve? That's the question. So humanity's development over thousands of years have just been a growing of desires plus that little trait inside of us that makes really this world a bit of a drama place is called egoism. So our egoistic development of desires, where I want things, I want to be rich, I want to have power, I want to know, has led us to this 21st century, which is called despair. So science doesn't have much place to go. And as you can see, pretty much all the leaders in the world are corrupt. They just use and abuse their power to get rich, or they make the rich richer and the poor poorer. So all these developments of desires with our bad inclination of egoism has led us to this very sad and miserable spot. But this is actually also a good thing, because humanity never really seeks a way of getting out of things unless it's bad, right? I mean, if everything is good, we're not really going to do anything, are we? Because life's too good. Who wants to move? Nobody. So life and the necessity to come to the purpose of life is pushing humanity to develop, and through that development come to its purpose of creation. So our historical development, although has a lot of chaotic times in it, devastating times, a lot of bloody periods in it, a lot of unhappy, sad, and really barbaric periods in it, it was a necessity in order to develop us from one phase to another, to another, to another, until we come to this desperate state of not succeeding in anything and wanting to really discover why we're living and what we should do to realize the purpose of our life, which is exactly what this wisdom is talking about. And this wisdom is only talking about that, nothing else. So the dot in the heart is a very important state for us to now, if you wish to, start your development to a higher level of consciousness, where we can discover this higher force called the Creator, who's behind the whole of reality. And through this dot in the heart, we can actually apply this wisdom to connect with that and to be a part of that big force. And that should bring us to the end of our correction, or end of our period of development, where we're actually partners with this creating force, and we live in existence with that creative force. Right then.
Now we've got a few questions here. Sarah has written in. Sarah says, who am I really if I have no soul and this body is just meat and bones that will disintegrate? That is the soul. Is that the soul you're talking about? She says, wait, sorry about the typo. I meant, what is the soul that you're talking about?
Okay, that's a very nice question, because that's what we want to build. The soul that I'm talking about is a perception tool that is able to perceive every event, every cause of everything that happens in reality. In Kabbalah, we have this term called the Creator. Right? Sometimes people call him God, Allah, Elohim, whatnot. Doesn't matter. There is a force behind nature. And the purpose of our existence is to actually match that force, to connect with it, to be with it, to apply ourselves within its attributes, and to actually be partners in the whole of creation with that force. The ability to do that is by a vessel called a soul. Just like I have a body in this world which allows me to do many things. I go to work. If I'm an artist, I can do something great and creative. If I'm a writer, I can write great novels. If I'm a farmer, I can grow things. We use our body to actually participate in reality, don't we? Now imagine if we had a soul that could participate in reality, in every aspect of reality, from head to toe, A to Z, and run it.
One more question. Again, forgive me if I mispronounce. Hitile says, how would you define perception without our physical bodies or senses? And I guess, how is our brain linked to our spiritual development?
That is also a very good question. And that we're going to do, I think, in the second lesson or the third lesson. Let me just check. Perception of reality is our next lesson. So I'd suggest don't miss it. Okay. Any other questions there?
I think that's it.
Okay, great. So now that we know what the wisdom of Kabbalah is, and now that we know what the wisdom of Kabbalah wants to bring us to, we just have to discover how we're going to do it. And this course is going to really talk about everything that we need to do in order to attain this thing called a spiritual vessel or a soul, or a way to perceive the Creator, a way to understand the Creator, and a way to live and participate in the whole of reality, just like that creating force, which is the destiny of humanity. So we'll either get there nicely if we study and if we learn things actively, or just like naughty children, parents have to push them and give them a bit of a sour experience in growth. Life will have to do the same to us. As we see from historical development, it's nothing new. I'm not trying to scare you or anything. We're not preaching bad things or like that. But if we look at our historical development, all the shifts in human development, like our revolutions and everything that happened in our history to develop us from one phase to another, has been through a phase of suffering where the intolerance to suffering has made us, do a leap. We made a leap through that intolerance with the current state that we're in. So same here. And humanity, that's why also you're probably wanting to discover the meaning of life as well, because life becomes intolerable, and when you can't tolerate it anymore, you start to ask yourself this question: why? So this is how the point in the heart develops. It is the stepping stone to develop that level of perception. So we're going to need that point in the heart constantly to bug us about the meaning of life. Then we're going to strengthen it with the study and the practical study of the wisdom of Kabbalah. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work on understanding our nature, reality, and then how the whole of reality will then become like a dialogue. It'll become like a conversation about how I should develop. It'll be like a parent teaching the child through a conversation, and then this whole reality will become that conversation. Everything that happens around you will begin to hint to you about what you should do, how you should do. And instead of trying to think and figure your way out of things, you'll be feeling your way through things. So it's a very exciting wisdom. I'm really glad to have you all here. I don't know how many people we were today. Or do you know how many people with us today?
We were about 25 to 27.
25 to, okay, that's not so bad. That's pretty good.
Yep.
Okay, so it's good to see. That's a good crowd, actually, 27, 28. It's not too crowded and it's not too little. So it's good to have you guys on board. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. Just a few, maybe we've got a few minutes. Maybe we'll just also give you a bit of a intro about who we are and who you're going to be studying with. My name is Mutlu, as I've said in the beginning, and this is Anthony. And we've been studying with B'nai Baruch for quite a while now. I started studying in 2002 in Sydney, Australia, and then I made a move here to the group, to Israel, in 2006, and wanted to be in here studying in a more intense pace. And Anthony, where are you from? Texas? Tell us a little.
Dallas, Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth area. Started studying around 2010. Got really serious around 2011, and about 3 years ago, I moved here to Israel to get a little bit more serious, and here we are. And it's been almost 10 years, and I'm really, really happy. I can say that this wisdom has given me a lot, and I'm very thankful for it.
Okay, well, I'm actually happy to say the same too. It's really opened up a lot of things for all of us. For any student of Kabbalah, this wisdom just opens up everything. Okay, so having said that, B'nai Baruch is also a global organization. We have friends who study with us from all over the world, in Japan, China, Australia, South America, North America, Europe, Africa, Russia, all of Asia, Middle East, everywhere. There are people all over the world, literally. In fact, we just had a really huge congress in February where we had friends come over from 66 countries, or
Yes.
70, something like that.
Yes, I think almost every nation was represented here during.
Wow, that was amazing. So we had a lot of friends from all over the world. We also, do these get-togethers because we got friends from all around the world. So a lot of people study from around the world, and there is no there's no restriction to anyone studying. So it doesn't matter which religion you're from, which culture you're from, which country you're from. The wisdom of Kabbalah is really something above everything, and it really connects everyone in a nice way towards this purpose of reality. So as you can see, Anthony's from Texas, US. I'm originally Turkish, and I moved from Australia to here, and we've got friends from, all over Europe and all over Africa, all over Asia, Russia, America, North and South. And because all of us are studying this beautiful wisdom to discover the meaning of life, all the other things in life really begin to, become not less important, but just become something on the side that we don't really worry about because it breaks us apart. So this wisdom has really connected a lot of people from different cultures, backgrounds, religions together, because we have this common desire to discover why we're living. So what difference does it make where you're from, what religion you're from, what color you are, or what culture you come from, if you have this common question, or what's the meaning of life? And I think it's a question for all of humanity. And we'll discover down the line as well how this wisdom will help us to all come to this collective consciousness which makes humanity so rich due to the differences that we all have, actually. And all of our differences are actually a treasure in the treasure box, which really make the treasure really, really rich, wealthy, and valuable. So I hope, well, our time is up for today. So I hope you got a bit of, a bit of taste of what this wisdom is about. We again apologize for the late delay. You'll have to you'll have to excuse us. We're all amateurs here. I have no idea about IT. I'm actually a finance profession, and you're the IT guy.
Yeah, not really good.
He's actually working for a software company, but IT is a big business. So we're not very, this is not our full-time job. We're just here to help you because we study, and hopefully we'll be able to help you as well, so you can join us studying as well for many more years to come. Our second lesson will be the perception of reality. We'll also do a little summary of the first lesson of what we went through here next week, so that we'll remember what we did. If you have spare time, you're more than welcome to visit our website, Kabbalah.info, and read through things, peruse through articles and books. We have a lot of publications there. So if you feel like you want to read, see what it's all about, there are many things you can read from our website as well. We hope you had fun during this lesson. It's certainly a privilege for me, and I'm sure it is for Anthony as well.
Definitely.
And we'll hope to see you in our next lesson next Tuesday. Have a great evening. All the best.
Come back and see us. Bye-bye. That was good. There's a lot of people.